So how many of you guys are storytellers? Okay, that's a lot. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and it might not go the way I expected because you guys are all way too creative. But let's first ask, how many of you guys consider yourselves singer-songwriters? It's better than most. How about athletes? What? How about astronauts? None of you? Come on now. VCs usually say yes to all the above. But the question is, if you're your 5-year-old self, you would have probably said yes to all the above. So the question is, what happens from when you're 5 to becoming an adult that makes you a little less idealistic? And that's what I'm going to base a lot of my presentation around, though it sounds really depressing. But before I go into that, I want to show you a quick clip of what we do. We are a VR animation studio, and this is a clip of Invasion, which was our first animated VR film that we just released March 11th and was also at Tribeca Film Festival in Cannes. Can we boost the volume up? Dark humor. So the funny thing is you are actually a little bunny. So when you look down when you're in one of these headsets, you see that you have a little bunny body. If you squat down, your body becomes really fat, and you can actually hop around as well. And so you and your bunny friend basically saved the world, unbeknownst to the humans, against these dangerous, dangerous aliens. So remember the question I asked you before, which is, what happens from when you're 5 to when you become an adult that makes you a little less idealistic? Well, maybe someone told you your sculpture didn't look quite right in art class, or you had a tiger mom like I did. But we believe that deep down inside, there's still a dreamer inside everyone. And we know this to be true because it's the reason we go watch the movies, to experience characters and stories beyond what we experience in our lives today. But we think animation does this way better than live action, because live action is still constrained by reality, versus animation is constrained only by the creativity within the director's head. And so the reason we love animation is because to us, it is art in motion. It takes you to a completely different world and makes it feel so real that you think you could reach out and touch it. And those last 2 sentences that I just said, which is takes you to a different world and makes that world real, is basically the definition of virtual reality, which is why we think animation and VR were made for each other. The first VR experience I saw was actually the Paul McCartney concert, and I super loved Jaunt. But I didn't like it because all I could notice was the poor resolution and the pixels, because our standards for reality are super high. But when you're watching animation, you have complete suspension of disbelief, so you actually believe you're in that world and you don't notice the pixels and the resolution anymore. And so the mission of our studio, ultimately, is to bring out your sense of wonder, bring out that 5-year-old in you back out again, and inspire you to dream, just like you did when you were 5. quick overview, because I'm trying to recruit you all to come join our company. We're hiring, by the way. Background, I'm CEO. My background is eBay. Worked on Toy Story 3 at Pixar. Was at Zynga for 6 years right from the beginning, vice president of games, looking over the Farmville franchise. Worked on a short film called The Dam Keeper with my two friends, Dice and Robert from Pixar, which was nominated for the Oscars last year. Eric is our crown jewel. So Eric directed Ants, Dreamworks' first ever full-length animated film, as well as wrote and directed Madagascar and all the Madagascar films, netting over $2.5 billion in the box office. And Larry Cutler, our CTO, went to Pixar in the early days, Toy Story 2, as well as Monsters, then became a head of global character technology across Dreamworks films, all of them, and also is a judge for the Oscar Technical Achievement Awards. So you should all come join us. So the question is, what did we learn from making Invasion? So first thing is that everything I tell you right now, you should completely ignore, because a lot of people are saying rules right now to say, like, I know what's right and what's wrong. The truth is VR is super early, and everyone is experimenting. So even though we found that something works for us, doesn't mean it works for everybody else. We were told in the beginning, you can't do cuts. You absolutely can do cuts. They said you can't do special sound, like the strings have to come from here. We found that that didn't work as well for us. We wanted actually the sound close to us, more in a stereo format, though spatialized. So anything I tell you, just kind of ignore, but you can also integrate into experimentation yourself. One thing is, right now with VR, there's very much the gee whiz factor. Whenever there's new technology, there's a lot of the gimmicky stuff, right? Like stuff's really small, or stuff's really big, or stuff is coming out at you and popping out, kind of like the early days of 3D. But ultimately, we believe that when the tech novelty wears away, the thing that will still matter, as it has with books, films, theater, TV, film, it will still be storytelling and characters at the end of the day. So right now, we're seeing a lot of tech demos right now, and I'm really excited to see storytellers like you guys actually creating great stories that isn't only cool and technology cool, but also has great heart and story in it. One thing we did notice is people who have seen VR many times, they come in, they want things to be faster, right? Because they've seen it so many times. But most of the audience are going to be new people who haven't seen VR before. So when they first put on the headset, instead of looking at where you want them to look, they want to look all around and absorb the environment. So we make sure to put a long section in the beginning for them to basically acclimate to the environment. So this little bunny comes out of the rocks here, but we give several seconds before that because we know people are going to be turning around and trying to absorb the environment before that actually happens. Another thing we learned is that 2 images every millisecond is really hard. So for those of you who come from traditional film, especially traditional animation, you can have 11 days. You can have like 11 weeks, honestly, if you wanted to render 1 frame. But in a game engine, you have to render 1 frame twice in like 11 milliseconds, once for each eye, which is very difficult. So we need to build all the technology tools from the ground up. So the film people don't necessarily know how to do that stuff that the game people do, and the game engine people don't necessarily know how to do the high production quality value of the film world. So a lot of our team is actually a blend of gaming people as well as film people that are building all the technology from the ground up. And it's really hard to be able to get the level of effects and lighting and all that type of stuff working in a real-time game engine, which is why we need to build a lot of this technology from scratch. Another thing is about turning up the volume. So as was said in the presentation before me, sound is a huge deal in terms of directing the user's eye. So there's one way to direct viewer's eyes is sound, right? Like, where's the bunny coming out of? But another way is having the other character look where they want you to look. So in this case, that other little bunny, did you notice when she looked off screen right, you then, well, we forced you to because we moved the camera for you, but if you were in VR, you would have looked to the right. You want to see what is the bunny looking at. So we're using the bunny as a way to direct your eye. But when you turn your eye this way, you better have something super awesome, exciting to catch their attention. Otherwise, they keep on turning their head that way. So what we've done, for example, is made sure there's a dark silhouette against white background, and we framed the frame, so we created a natural frame in the environment to actually capture your eye. So there's things like that that we're learning with each production, and these are the types of things you need to experiment to figure out how to direct the viewer's eyes. Because sometimes people say, as a director, like, oh, it's really difficult to do storytelling in VR because you can't control composition. We actually think that's only if you're a bad director. We think if you're a good director, you can still get people to look where you want. You inspire them to compose the same shots that you would have wanted them to, but yet it feels awesome because they felt like they did it themselves. Other thing is VR experience a film? Is it a game or something in between? And what is up with this empathy thing? So to be completely honest, when Eric first started out, he was skeptical. He thought, oh, if we make you a character in the film, is that gonna feel too much like a game? And right now in a dark theater, when you're watching a film on a rectangular screen, you're not thinking about yourself at all, right? You're in the dark, and you're just focusing on the screen, and all you think about, what are these characters thinking? You're not focused on yourself. But now, if it's in a game, you're always thinking, who am I? What character am I? What does the game maker want me to do? How do I get to the next level? And so by putting you as a character in the film, does that then distract you? Is your attention split between yourself and your ego, like who am I? What am I supposed to do? Too much pressure? Or do you feel like you're actually part of it? And so I think Eric did a great job in terms of balancing between this by making you a character, but not making you feel too stressed out about being a character. So in this one, you are an actual bunny, and you can feel empathy for this bunny. He was worried at first, but when we showed it to about 1,700 people, because I come from Zynga and I'm a data monkey, so I like to see lots of people try this stuff out. People said that when the other bunny hides behind you, and the aliens are trying to shoot at you, that people were saying, I felt like I could feel the breath of the bunny behind me, and I felt like I was protecting this bunny against this alien, and I loved the bunny that much because I was the only thing in between that alien and the bunny. And so they had this feeling of empathy and love for the bunny that they wouldn't have been able to get if you just saw on a rectangular screen. So I think that was a win for sure. For me personally, because I have a lot of anxiety, I was like, what is the bunny doing? And I was stressed out about looking back and forth, but apparently nobody else is stressed out except for me. But so Eric won that battle. Storyboards still matter. So at first we thought, hey, we're in this cool VR environment. We could just do everything in VR. We don't need storyboards because who knows who's good, like where the audience is going to look. But it's really important for your animators to still know where the important story beats are. So basically, we built our own storyboarding tool to allow you to storyboard in VR. And if you came to work with us, you can use this cool tool too. Think twice before you kill the bunny. So we actually put out a short trailer that was only 2 minutes last year around Thanksgiving time. And it was just a 2-minute version of this full length, which is about 6 minutes. And in that, the hawk actually kills the bunny, which is really sad. And we're like, maybe we could say you have to pay money for the bunny not to die, and that's how we monetize. I'm kidding, we didn't do that. But we thought, oh, it'd be funny, because we showed it at Oculus Connect, and we thought, oh, dark humor, the early adopters that would be at Oculus Connect would love this. But the funny thing is, one mother, after she saw it, she's like, I love this, but I would never show it to my daughter. And Eric's like, why? And she said, because in a theater, if the bunny got killed, my daughter would hear the other people in the audience laughing at the dark humor, or she could turn to me and say, Mommy, like, what happened to the bunny? And I could tell her whatever I wanted to tell her. But now in VR, when she's by herself in that headset, she's all alone, right? So she could get really scared and not know what's going on. So we just have to be aware of that. It is a solitary experience in VR right now, but I'm really excited about both what like AltSpace, VR chat, as well as Facebook are doing to make the experience more social, because I do think the theater experience, I laugh more in at a comedy when I'm in the theater because I feed off the energy of other people too. We'd love to figure out how to get that in a VR experience as well. So that's it. Follow us at that Twitter handle and that Facebook, and if you want to come join my company, feel free to email me at maureen@baobabvr.com or careers@baobabvr. Do we have time for questions, or am I over? All right, questions.
One quick question, anyone?
Yes.
I see one.
Yeah. A lot of shows or films have started to explore dimensions that you don't normally see. Like Sherlock Holmes shows the interior, like mental projections that Sherlock Holmes is imagining. Where the original Dune film by Peter Lynch, you could hear the characters' voices as voiceovers, which everyone said not to do, but it worked great in that movie. Do you see things like that? Like either layers that you could interactively kind of trigger or see
Yeah, I think absolutely, because every single medium has its own pros and cons, and we think that VR is just another set of tools for a creator to create their stories, so nothing is off the table, and what you said is really interesting. For example, we're trying to figure out we have additional episodes of Invasion, like if I put my head through this desk, what happens? Does it prevent me from doing it, or do I go into another dimension, or do I see particles and things like that? These are all things that are unique to VR, so I would say that's definitely something that should be experimented with. I also believe that cuts or even zooms, not in terms of accelerating you forward, that's totally possible. So there's that one scene when the alien is actually pointing the antenna towards you, about to kill you. We actually experimenting doing like cut, cut, cut to go closer, because it doesn't have to just be like, oh, I don't move the camera at all, I'm just in reality. It's about getting the audience to feel something emotional. So if having the voice and hearing that, it adds to the story, absolutely, I think we should do that.
All right, thank you very much, Maureen.
Thank you.